going on, y'all? It's Brian and Fearless with another episode of Trial and Error. This week's episode, last week we talked about the collapse of the American narrative. Today we're going to get into a little bit more mental stuff, and we're talking about what was the conversation, Fearless? I had it in my mind.
Social media and
the attention,
attention, right?
Yeah, how the attention economy broke our brains. And what that basically means is right now on social media, the concept of social being interaction, human interaction, there is an economy on social media. And that economy is attention. We're competing for eyeballs. And as a result of competing for eyeballs, some people become shameless. They'll do anything. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. But also we're going to tie in adult literacy rates and childhood literacy rates and all kinds of other fun stuff. And I have something, some nerdy stuff, some nerdy stuff about journalism to get off my chest too. This is probably going to be on tonight's live stream as well. And so all that and more on this episode of Trial and Error. So this week, before we get into the conversation, Fearless, you got anything you want to get off your chest? Anything in your brain? Anything you just want to put out there in the universe?
Do you know what? Before we go ahead and say whatever you need to say. I am going to show everybody the book that I just finished.
Cool. So, guys, the thing that's been kind of bugging me, and this is just my journalism nerd coming out. A couple weeks ago, Fearless and I talked about Barry Weiss and taking over, was editor-in-chief over at CBS, Paramount Studios or whatnot. And I kind of speculated that there was going to be some immediate fallout from that. And lo and behold, 60 Minutes has a pretty sizable controversy, and it might even be a constitutional crisis based on the way that it rolls out. What happened was they had a story about people that were Venezuelan migrants who were moved to that prison, I think is in El Salvador, not mistaken.
Yeah.
And basically talking about the torture and abuse and all kinds of really, 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 really horrific stuff that they encountered during this time there. And basically this Barry Weiss spiked the story. What that means is an editor saw a story and killed it. Now, the reason she gave was the administration wouldn't comment. Like, they reached out to the administration to comment on some aspects of the story. And the administration refused to comment. And so she used that as an impetus to say, well, since the administration didn't comment, we can't run with the story, which has never been the case. We've seen it on the local news where they say, we reached out to such and such for comment. We have yet to hear back.
Hey, we have yet to hear back, correct.
Right. But she used that as a reason to spike the story. And the reason why and even the reporter who did the story said this is politically motivated, because it doesn't necessarily paint us in the best light in terms of what our domestic policy is for migrants. And so they spiked the story. And so that is a huge stinking deal that's not going to get really publicized that much, but it is a big deal, because basically what that her spiking the story confirms is all the administration has to do at CBS is say, hey, we're not going to comment on that, and they'll kill any story that is critical of their policies, which is not necessarily great for American people. Now, I do have plenty of problems with broadcast journalism, some aspects of commercial broadcast journalism as it stands, and corporate journalism, but 60 Minutes, for better or worse, has kind of been a standard where their editors allow their contributors to move forward with stories without a lot of interference. And so now we're actually starting to see interference from the top down, and that is a disturbing trend. So it's going to impact the way that you guys receive information collectively. So that's really what it is, and that's just something that's on my mind. I don't know what how far this fallout's going to go, but it is not a good thing when we're spiking stories that are just because they're critical of U.S. policy. That's not the way it needs to be. And it's happened before, but in 2025, where we have information at unlimited technology, come on, we can literally see the story and go watch it and see what was kept from us. So that's what it is. What you
Okay,
got?
okay, so no. So how does this matter? So one of the things that we're talking about today is about what is our stuff called again?
The attention economy.
The attention economy broke up, right? I'm just talking about it now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of what you're talking about right now is you said that one of the biggest problems with this is that this is going to change how we start getting our news.
Yep.
Start receiving our news. But the problem is, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is kind of what we're talking about today, how the attention economy broke our brains, which is we're not reading shit now.
Yeah. And this is gonna
So it's not like this stuff is coming later. This stuff is here now, and we're still not gonna get it.
Well, and it's gonna get swallowed up. Let me zoom out a little bit. This is gonna get swallowed up. What's gonna happen is this essentially is gonna get swallowed up in the news cycle. So this happened. The outrage hit like around noon-ish yesterday. And so within 24 hours, this will be out of the news cycle. And it really shouldn't be. It should be something that is alarm bells, because 60 Minutes has had a lot of issues over the last year with established veteran editors and reporters leaving because of censorship. And not censorship in the way that I don't get to say racial slurs on whatever. We're talking about censorship in this story doesn't paint this administration or this specific government entity in a great light, and so we're going to exert our influence to suppress the story. And that is a thing that's happened, but never on this scale where it's this overt. Specifically on 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes is kind of a different beast, and it's just interesting to see where this thing is going to go. And I think a lot of times people say, well, news is censored because I don't like what I'm seeing in the news. Like the news doesn't align with my political ideology or personal ideology, and that's why the news is censored. No, the news's job is to be biased towards whatever the truth is.
Right.
And the concept that journalists are supposed to be these completely neutral arbitrators of information, that's not what it is. Our journalist is chasing down what the truth of a story is. And so if we're mad about the truth of a story, then we're not really getting news. You're looking for an opinion, your opinion to be validated.
Okay. So kind of like confirmational bias is what we're looking for, as opposed to looking for an objective truth.
Right. And so that's kind of what that's what we're up against. And from the attention economy standpoint, the unfortunate side of this is this is big in journalism circles, it's big people that follow this kind of stuff, but it's going to be kind of a passing thing, specifically for the people that only get their news from CBS. They may not even ever really be aware of this, because CBS ain't going to report it on the news. They're not going to report, hey, we spiked a story for, our editor, our boss spiked a story for 60 Minutes. They're not going to say that. And so the only way you're going to get that information is either, an alternative news source or independent journalism, or even just a different channel. But more times than not, people are branded to the point where they only watch one news network. I know, we're kind of an ABC house. That's kind of what we watch. And so if we're going to consume news, that's typically where we go. And, that's just how it goes. And so if I consume independent journalism, I read independent magazines and news magazines and newspapers and stuff like that. But when it comes to watching, like the act of sit down and turning on the news, typically is an ABC thing.
So how about, or why not just watch it from a different standpoint? A buddy of mine who went to school for journalism as well was telling me, actually, I think it was marketing. It was marketing. And he was telling me, he said, I don't watch American news. If I want to know something, I'll watch British.
Yep, BBC.
BBC. What's the other one?
Public television, because public television has international news and stuff. I'll watch that if it's on.
He's talking about Al Jazeera type stuff.
Mhm.
He said I watch everything else outside of what what our country is talking about, but I won't watch it from here because they'll only give you a real broad stroked type of agenda on
Yeah.
what they're talking about instead of giving you, hey, this is what it is.
Well, and that's kind of what it is. But here's the thing. So, and that's the different. It's the different fronts. Like you watch local news to see what's going on in your local community, be aware of stuff,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And so you can't necessarily not watch that if you're into news. Like a lot of people don't even pay attention to news. Be honest with you, but if you pay
Yeah.
attention to the different layers of it, you watch local news to see what's going on locally,
Well, yeah.
national news to see the national scene, and then international news so that you can know what the world's going on. More times than not, somebody's missing out on one of those layers. Like they're excluding one or two of those layers, and they only watch national news or they only watch local news. More time, the one that normally gets left out is international news. And it's just because the American narrative, we center ourselves. We're the main characters of the world, and that's how we kind of view ourselves in the way we address things. Because if that was the case, if we didn't see ourselves as the main characters, bro, we would actually have like a British Broadcasting affiliate as one of our major regular networks. Like, you know what I'm saying? We wouldn't just relegate international news just to public television, which the funds are being slashed to that too, because the reason why they're slashing funds to public television is because you get that independent, non-corporate journalism, and certain people don't like that.
So you mean like with PBS
Mm-hmm.
type stuff or whatever? Like I remember like a bunch of I'm writing this stuff down. PBS. I remember that they used to have all of these different shows on like MathNet. They used to have a bunch of just different shows where you can learn a bunch of different stuff.
Well, so it'll be the PBS NewsHour. I used to watch. My mom. Here's the thing. This is how I kind of got into journalism. My mom used to watch the McNeil Laren NewsHour, where they would literally have like anchors from all over the world and all over these international journalists sitting around talking about the politics and international news of the day. Like she would watch that. I would sit there and watch it with her. And so we don't have that anymore. I don't think. I gotta see McNeil Laren. I don't even know how to spell it. News Hour, because it used to come on. Yeah, it used to come on. It's been on since '83. It changed its name. I think it's still does it still come on?
Does it?
Let me double check. Yeah, McNeil Learner or whatever News Hour. Does it still come on? I don't know. I'm looking it up now. So, but he anchored the program. McNeil anchored the program until '95. Blah blah blah. So anyway, go ahead with your book while I look this up. Well, I pull this up now.
So
it's sorry. Go ahead. It's the BBS NewsHour. Go ahead.
BBS NewsHour.
PBS.
PBS.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So 5 plus minus 2 bits of info. Okay. So Gregory Bates, and I cannot remember what the hell that man did for the life of me, said that conscious awareness is based on a couple different numbers. 5 plus minus 2 bits of information. Hence, if you remember why a phone number is technically 7 digits, it's because of him. But if you really think about it, it's more than that. But the prefix of the number stays the same. So your area code is going to stay the same. It's not going to change. So ours would be 402 or 531, right? That would be our number. 712 is, what is that? Council Bluffs, right?
I believe so, yeah.
All right, so 712 would be Council Bluffs. But that that prefix will always stay the same. So the numbers, on the other hand, the 7 numbers that is your phone number will change. But if it was actually more than that, we'll probably forget stuff. So Gregory Bates basically said that we are going to remember 5 bits of information or plus 2 things added onto that or minus 2, right? Mm-hmm. So it could be 5 plus, so you might remember 9 things, and then you might subtract it by 2. So whatever it is that you can remember, you're going to subtract that by 2. Now, unconsciously, you remember billions of bits of information, but your mind will only filter 5 plus 2 minus 2 bits of information, right? Mm-hmm. So on the high end, it'd be 9. On a low end, it'd be like 3 to 5, somewhere up around there, right?
Right.
The reason why I'm saying all this is very simple. What our phones, TikTok, Instagram, and all that stuff is doing is it's lowering your conscious awareness bits, if that makes any sense. So if you're able to remember 5 plus 2 bits of information minus 2, right? Mm-hmm. It's lowering that 5 number down. It's lowering it. So instead of you remembering 5 plus 2, it's that you remember 2 plus maybe 1 or 2. Okay. Hey, grab me 2 things of water.
Okay.
Thank you, son. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
So it's lowering it on that level. Now, unconsciously, here's the thing. This is where I want to go with this. Unconsciously speaking, your conscious mind has to filter out. Thank you, buddy.
Yep.
Thanks. Your conscious mind has to filter out the information that's coming in. Otherwise, you will go crazy, literally, because you're taking in way too much information. When we're watching steadily videos, these feeds, these what do they call the shorts, mm-hmm. and all that stuff, what it's doing is it's giving you little bits of dopamine. And then you keep scrolling. You watch this video for a little bit, scroll up, watch a video for a little bit, scroll up, watch it. You see what I'm saying? So you're kind of like giving yourself these dopamine hits. But what's happening off air, put your phone down and go do something else. Mm-hmm. It's tearing up that conscious bits of information. It's Robin Dunbar. Well, yep. Right. So that book is based on oh my God, what is that book based on? That book is based on I think it's Gossip. Mm-hmm. Stuff. I got it over here somewhere. But Robin Dunbar talked about that a lot based on our based on what we could pay attention to.
Yep. I was going to get into that. I didn't mean to pop it up on the screen, but I was looking it up to.
Right. Yeah. No. But yeah, his stuff is like really good. But he's also the guy who talked about why people gossip and all that stuff. But a lot of those dopamine hits. But my point of the matter is when you have a whole bunch of dopamine hits, you're not going to be able to focus on anything.
Yep.
That's also the reason why kids, for the most part, find it difficult to concentrate because they find reading boring as shit. Where it's a text message, they can read that all day long because it's a dopamine hit. Reading is not a dopamine hit if you sit down reading a book or something, because it's more long term as opposed to short term.
Right.
With the text message, you read it, bam, 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 done. You know what I'm saying? Even when somebody sends you like a holy Bible of text, I love those type of things. Mm-hmm. Somebody else is like, bro, you got to shorten that. You know what I'm saying? Because our ability to stay focused has shortened. Yes. Yeah. Why you think that Steve Jobs said that he would not let his kids on an iPad because he understood what it was.
Well, and that's one of the things. There's so much that goes into what you just said. So many different layers to it, and so many different directions we can go. Dunbar's number is 100% a thing, and the idea of it is, so we can kind of explain it to the fam. Dunbar's number basically says that is 150 is the maximum number of stable relationships or meaningful relationships a person can maintain at any given time.
But he was also talking about in a tribal,
yeah,
type of thing or whatever. So
in a social construct,
right? So when you sit there and say that, man, I got 5,000, like I have like close to 5,000 friends on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I only know a few of these motherfuckers, and even then, I still don't rock with them like that.
Right. And
you know what I'm saying? I don't.
You know, and so this is basically what it says. Like,
there it is. There it is.
You know what I'm saying? You have your support group, and it builds up through there. And one of the things that we're encountering is we've naturally we're forcing ourselves past that threshold of 150 people that we know. Right. And so you're constantly in this mode of, I got all these friends, and you have to maintain all these relationships. Like, even go open up your Facebook and see how many people have birthdays on your Facebook feed. And you're sitting around wishing everybody a happy birthday. And that can be draining sometimes. Like, that could be exhausting in and of itself. Because you're trying to do maintenance of all these relationships with people that don't live next to you and stuff like that. I have friends that are in other states. I have friends that I've never met personally. I've interacted with them online, and that's it. But that doesn't mean that it's any less of a connection or friendship or anything. It's just we never really met personally. But the idea is we can hold 150 meaningful relationships at any one given time before we start letting weaker relationships drift away. Mm-hmm. And that's friend groups, that's family groups, that's work groups, like any group of people. And yes, there have been people like Dunbar's number is not absolute. And a lot of times these cognitive theories and cognitive science-based things, they're always being challenged because that's part of the process. Part of science is disproving the theory, right? But it's always been around 150. Even other people that challenge it has been around 150. They'll say it's more, they'll say it's less. But you only can maintain that many. And basically what we're doing is you're forcing your brain. We're trying to force our brains to expand and have all this capacity to hold all these other people in our thoughts and activities and stuff like that. And we're not really meant to. I joke around a lot when I say this, but I'm like, human beings are not meant to have this level of direct access to people's half-aborted thoughts. Like, we're not meant to have instantaneous access to all these people's half thought out thoughts. And that's what we got on social media. And so in the attention economy, everything's competing for our eyeballs right now. And social media, in a way, that's how they make money, right? Like, they sell ad space and put it in our social media feed. And that's how they make money. So they're competing for our attention too. To your point, talking about how the dopamine and all this other stuff, I saw this young lady on TikTok, and it wasn't necessarily scientific, but she was kind of quoting some statistics, and she was talking about cognitively with younger folks and some older folks. Let's not just pretend it's just the domain of the kids, because people ain't reading anyway, right? Adults ain't reading. But she talked about how a lot of times the kids, they can read a word and not know what that word means. Yeah, their comprehension has gone away. They can sound out what the word is, but have no concept. They have no ability to comprehend what was actually said. Yes. She's talking about in terms of music. And I don't want to be the old man complaining about music. That's not my, I had that argument with people online all the time. But she even said from a musical standpoint, she's like, that's why when you're seeing a lot of these rappers that are coming out more and more, they're just making melodic sounds because the kids don't want to have to think about lyrical content. They don't want to think about punchlines or anything like that. And I make fun of this line all the time, but what is it? Lil Wayne, real G's move in silence like lasagna or something like that.
Ah, yeah.
She said if he said that nowadays, it would go over a bunch of kids' heads.
Yeah.
She's like, they may not even know what lasagna is or have any experience with it directly, just because of how filtered our worlds are. So we have instantaneous, immediate access to every repository of knowledge that exists in this device right here, and no intellectual curiosity to look it up. Less than ever. We're more incurious than ever. And so there's so many different things that there's so many different aspects of this social media thing that's hitting us, and it's not just kids. It is, I know we like to harp on what it does with kids, but there are adults whose brains are getting cooked by this, getting cooked by social media on a daily basis. And the fact, okay, here's the last thing, and here's the other thing: we've monetized the ability to get attention, right? Like people have social media accounts where they get paid. I got social media accounts where I get paid, right? But when you monetize attention, what does that do to the attention? People will pursue it any way that they can get it. And so you see the craziest shit on social media for people chasing down the attention. Absolutely batshit insane kind of stuff. And it's not just us, regular run-of-the-mill people. We got to worry about government officials tweeting out wild, insane, attention-driven stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, cooked. We're cooked, man. And it's not changing anyway. So how do we address this? Like, what do we do to, because here's the thing, and it's something I've said, is the price of integrity is cheap in the attention economy. Like, integrity is up for sale in the attention economy. All I have to do is give you some eyeballs and you're willing to do and say whatever. There's different angles I can go. Like you look at like what Nicki Minaj is doing, what Candace Owens is doing, like saying stuff that they know is counterfactual because it gets them attention and eyeballs and controversy. Kanye is doing it because it gets them attention, eyeballs, and controversy. Every time Kanye's about to drop something, he jumps online and says something insane. Like, it's not even his music anymore. He just hops online and says the most insane stuff, and that's how he tries to get attention for it. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I don't think he tries. He does it.
Yeah, for better or worse. That's how Charlie Kirk operated. That's how Ben Shapiro operates. That's how a lot of these grifters in these spaces on the left and right operate. They'll get online, say something controversial. Charleston White was notorious for that until his 15 minutes faded. And so people get on and say the most insane stuff just for that little dopamine hit of attention, or sometimes the money that comes with it.
You know, one thing that I wanted to say about that is that one of the things that you said was how like the kids don't know how to sound the word out, but they won't know what it means. I ask my son all the time, hey, do you know what that word is? Like, no, I don't. So the one thing that I do as a father that's sitting there reading with him, and my son's 13, so like, don't get it twisted. Look that word up.
I used to get that all the time.
Go look that word up. Go see what it means, right? And even when I read books today, modernity. I didn't know what modernity was. So I had to go look it up, right? And I'm like, okay. And then there's a few other words that we hear on a consistent basis that I didn't know. So I go look it up. And here's the thing. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Talk right quick. Yeah. I'm going to get the book and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Hold on.
And I'm kind of reminded of the joke, because my mom used to do it all the time. If I asked what a word was or how to spell it, she'd tell me to go look it up. But pneumonia. I got hit with that. She thought it was funny, but I mean, and it turned into like a stand-up routine, to be honest with you. But looking up, Mom, how do you spell pneumonia? Go look it up.
Go look it up.
I could sit here for 5 days and never find how to spell pneumonia. But the thing is, guys, I used to have to go get the dictionary. If I need to know how to spell a word, I used to have to go get the dictionary. And, my mom wasn't playing about it. If I asked her what a word meant, she would send me to go look it up too. And that's how I learned a lot of words. I learned one of the things, I learned vocabulary because I never, like, my mom wouldn't baby talk to me, and she wouldn't let other people use baby talk around me. She would talk to me like in complete sentences, like a person who can understand it. It wasn't talking above my head, like it was geared for a toddler, but she never talked down to me or anything. Um, and that's something we practice with our own kids. We never baby talked our children, and that's why the kids are kind of verbose.
Right, yeah. And even that word means to just be extremely talkative.
Yeah.
Or whatever, just like the word loquacious.
Yep.
And usually you'll find people who love to read also love etymology as well.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the words was obfuscate. How do you pronounce that? Obfuscate.
Now I know. I just said it this morning, and now I can't say it because you didn't.
Obfuscate. It's a hold on.
Obfuscate. It's obfuscate.
Obfuscate. So like I did this one with another word. Oh my God, what was that word? I couldn't get it. Peculiar.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you read peculiar, it's peculiar. But then when you say it's peculiar, right? So that word, which basically means obscure, to blur, to confuse, to complicate, to cloud, to muddy certain things. So it makes it a little awkward to not awkward, but it blurs what you're trying to either come across or what you're looking at, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what the other word is modernity. And then another word was that wizened? Yeah, wizened. Wizened. I never heard those words before. So as I'm reading this book, let me get the book for you. As I'm reading this book, that's the first thing that pops into my head. I'm like, oh, let me go look this word up or whatever, because I don't know what it means. Now, based on the sentence, I can kind of gather and assume that I know, but I don't want to assume. I want to know what it means, because this is a word that I don't know. And I don't know if you can see that, but I circled it and I wrote it down or whatever. But then if I go back in my book, I red pen everything, especially good points or something like that or whatever. So that's what I do when I don't know a word. That's how I look it up. Whenever they talk about a book, in a book, you know what I do? I go look that book up and I go buy it.
Well, and
so yeah,
that's called intellectual curiosity, and I think that's one of the things that's actually missing. I have a little segment on my live stream that I do on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, depending on when I'm home. It's called Words Mean Things.
Oh, that's nice.
And so last week, the Words Mean Things was talking about the use of in our regular parlance of the words liberal, conservative, and neoliberal. And so
like we were talking about last week.
Yeah. And I spent
that was the one thing that we did was like, hold on, let's define what these words are, and then let's talk about it.
Yep. And I spent like 30 minutes on it, talking about the differences and policies and stuff because I think a lot of times people don't understand when we're talking about words and our usage, we kind of have two separate meanings of most words that get thrown around, where you have your rhetorical, like if you're talking about words that come from psychology, sociology, therapy, or stuff like that, typically there's two different lanes that those words operate in. There is your everyday normal parlance, and our rhetorical words, the way that we talk in rhetoric cycles, and then the other side is what these words actually mean per the discipline they were born in. So there is a sociological definition of racism versus a rhetorical definition of racism. There's a sociological version of conservatism versus the rhetorical version of conservatisrism.
So do you see what this says?
Yep. We talked about that one.
This is exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
Or whatever. And I gave this, I bought two. So Miss Miss Jennifer Mullen, PhD. Um, I bought two of these books. One I'm keeping for myself to read. The other one I bought for a friend of mine who's a therapist
Mm-hmm.
or whatever that I bought for her because she wanted to understand what it was like to to give therapy um to to black people or people of color in general. And I was like, and I read this book and I got this book from not got it from there's a gentleman who I just finished his book. I forgot his name. Sorry, bro. Um but he became a doctor. I think that we talked about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he became a doctor and he was talking about her book and I'm like, oh man, that sounds really good. So I went in and bought her book. And yeah, and I haven't read it, so please forgive me or whatever. But I read his book. His book is pretty good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But what he was talking about just kind of really resonated with me, and I went in and bought his book too. So yeah,
And there's another layer to it because I think we mentioned a couple weeks ago. The reason why that book is important, why that matters, is because on one hand, specifically narrowly black people, we've been excluded from a lot of cognitive studies and things along those lines. And how and when they start talking about how different mental or neurodivergent traits emerge, we start talking. We don't necessarily there's different patterns of how it's recognized, different things that you see, different, in different populations, different subgroups, depending on where they are in the American socioeconomic strata. There's different ways that people manifest some of these things. Like anxiety looks different in a kid that grew up where environmental violence was common. It looks different than a kid that grew up in the suburbs. So anxiety looks different in these two different socioeconomic pathways. And so it's important for these conversations are important because black people have never been centered in mental health conversations. And I said it I think I did a TikTok on this where even when I did work with juvenile probation, you'd be shocked at how many black kids are in jail or in detention for undiagnosed or untreated mental health things. Like anxiety looks different. uh Being on the spectrum looks different, and because they may not have providers that are aware of what it looks like, they end up getting labeled as one thing where it's really some kind of treatable stuff. But that's besides the point. So I'll do a quick plug tonight on Words Mean Things. We're going to be talking about begs the question and how much I hate hearing that specific phrase.
begs the question.
Begs the question. I hate when I hear people, and it's all over social media. I've heard intelligent people say, I've heard educated people say it. It doesn't beg the question, it raises the question. It does. Whatever you're thinking, if something makes you question it, it doesn't beg the question. If it inspires you to ask questions, it's not begging the question, it raises the question. Begging the question is not not what you think it means. So please stop saying it begs the question. Unless you're really talking about something that involves circular logic, then you could say this is begging the question. So anyway, that's what's going to be on tonight. That's going to be on tonight's episode of Blurting While Dad. We're going to have Words Mean Things, and a couple of other stuff. So we're talking about the attention economy. And the thing is, people feel more reactive and angrier than before. And a lot of it is, the concept of triggered. People are triggered and whatnot, which is another mental health piece of jargon that got out there.
So let's talk about rage baiting, because isn't that like the single thing in there or whatever? So how about let's talk, if we're going to talk about words, let's go there. So let's look up, okay, hold on, rage baiting. Okay, so I'm going to put this up and then I'm going to share this tab. Can you see what I'm looking at?
Yep.
Oh, hold on.
You got to put it on stage.
All right. Well, damn, that doesn't look all that good either.
Well, I mean, in rage
Yeah,
baiting, you can make a really lucrative career off of rage
yeah,
baiting
yes,
people
you
on
can.
Twitter.
So, but okay, so here are the here's the definition of it. Rage baiting is intentionally, I don't know what is it, intentionally, proactively, provocatively, and proactively, it's content or whatever, posts, comments, videos designed to trigger strong negative emotions like anger or outrage, primarily to boost engagement, like shares and comments for attention, profit, ad revenue, or to manipulate opinions.
Hmm.
It uses emotional triggers, misinformation, or diversive, decisive. Sorry about that. Divisionists topics is as bait
Hmm.
or whatever. So exploiting how social media algorithms favor high emotions interactions, making outrage profitable and deepening societal divides.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's basically Oxford University Press named it the word of the year in 2025, which is this year, due to its prevalence.
Yep. And that's the thing. I mean, the reality is, man, like you can make a really lucrative career rage baiting. Like a lot of these people, these talking head grifters that have these big audiences, that's all they do.
That's their objective, and sadly enough, the part about this that really sucks the most, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, that most of the people who are rage baiting, you don't feel the same way that they're actually talking about.
No,
They ain't got no problem with black people. They ain't got no
there's-
problem with the Hispanics. They ain't got no problem with nobody. They know you got a problem with people, and therefore they're going to piss you off. That are going to give them ad revenue. That are going to make them some money. That are going to make you follow, share, subscribe, leave a message,
Mhm.
right? And so, and then that happens.
Well, and the thing is, man, like people have gone on Twitter and paid for paid Twitter accounts where you actually get paid for engagement and just said inflammatory, incendiary, sometimes racist, sometimes homophobic, sometimes super sexist stuff, just because they know people are going to be like, oh, I hate this so much. And then they share it to everybody that they know. And it ends up becoming this ongoing cycle where they just jump in, say something crazy, and people are going to respond negatively towards it. And then they sit back and count the money flowing in. And that's their entire business model, is just pissing people off. Um, and well, was it Howard Stern made an entire career doing that for the first part of his career, is just
Yeah,
pissing people off.
and
Um,
now he doesn't.
right.
Now he's real chill and cool, calm because now you're getting to see exactly who he is. Now I'm not saying that that's who he was then,
Hmm.
but shock value was what they were. That's what they were trying to do. That's what it was called back in the day, shock value. Nowadays, boy, you gonna have to bring something totally different to the table to shock me.
Well, and to me, it's like a really hollow kind of existence. Like you exist, you don't exist to be helpful. You don't exist to elevate voices that are not being heard.
Right,
You exist to infuriate people. And
yep.
so, what is your world like in real life? Because that, in my mind, you don't just shut that off. Like, that's not something
Well,
you just shut off when you go to your regular real life. Like, you
right,
don't just, you're not this gregarious, incredible person off here, but then you log on and you're absolute terror and you just piss people off. I don't think that that shuts off. And to me, that's kind of an empty existence. I don't know. I feel like, you know, I wouldn't want to live that kind of life. I wouldn't want every time I'm on a public platform where I'm trying to give somebody something that they can use or bring entertainment or some kind of joy into somebody's space, as opposed to I'm just here to own you and piss you off.
right,
But there are people whose entire like, and it's not children. There are grown adults whose entire personality since 2016, 2017 have been I'm just here to piss off whoever else. You'll see it on their social media. They got nothing but memes of people, of cartoon characters giving the middle finger to somebody. What
And
kind
then,
of
right, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I'm just trying to give you the truth."
right?
Like,
And,
well, the truth according to whom?
right. I'm just here to bring the truth, and or they'll say follower of Christ or something like that, and then it'll just be the most incendiary, mean-spirited things all over their page. You go through their comments, it's nothing but them rubbing salt in people's wounds and spitting in their faces. But then it's like, follower of Christ. Like, what are we doing here? And I think the anonymity of social media, even though your face is on there, even though your face is on your social media, a lot of times, anonymity of social media has made people feel like they got this veil of protection. I just dealt with this morning with a racist troll, where I ended up like, his name and employer was a Google search away. I haven't got a picture of his house. I know his family. I know all of his. If you're watching, my friend, I know where your grandparents are buried. I know who your mom and dad are. I know your brother and sister. I know your last couple of employers. I have a picture of your house. Like, you're not that hard to find, bro. And I'm not posting any of that stuff. I'm not. But it's kind of an abject lesson in, you ain't that hard to find when you get online being a racist, obnoxious jerk. I've had a wonderful conversation with your former employer. And apparently the reason why you're a former employee is because you've been doing this stuff for a while. So, but when you exist when your entire existence, you offer no value but to incite or outrage, I don't know what kind of life that is for you. I don't understand that entire need. Like, I don't understand the need. Like, I see these people that have these TikTok shows where they're talking politics and stuff like that, and people just call in just to berate them. I don't have the time. What? I'm gonna take my time that I have in my life, my limited amount of time that I have on this vessel with my wife and my kids and with my friends and family. And I'm going to take a part of it and dedicate it to fucking with somebody. I I don't understand. I'm going to make your life miserable. I make your interaction with me miserable. So that's what you're going to remember of me, that you interacted with me and I was completely miserable to you. I don't understand that line of thinking. But again, this is the attention economy, because the attention economy rewards that. You get your dopamine hits with little thumbs up or smiley faces or ha-ha faces or whatnot, right?
Right.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to dominate that piece of it.
No, I love it. I love it. You got to do what you got to do.
So, but yeah, people feel more reactive. Even people that are savvy on social media, like I do this, like this is what I do. Like, this is my business, like the social media side of it, managing other people's social media, managing my own. That's kind of my business. And sometimes you could even feel like I got to compete for attention. I posted something on YouTube the other day and I had 600 views and no likes, one down vote, one thumbs down. And I'm like, ooh, that stung a little bit, but it's a real thing. And so it's not about whether you can outsmart the attention economy or the morality of it. It's about how these things are hitting our brains. Right. Peerless talked about it a little bit earlier with reading comprehension and stuff. I will go on a little bit to say, from the adult standpoint, adults are reading even less and their reading comprehension scores are down. And it's not just educated people or uneducated people, it's educated people. One of the marketing concepts you kind of learn is, if you want to reach the most people, communicate at a 4th grade reading level, because that's where most people are. And it doesn't matter if you got doctors, lawyers, super educated people, they're only comprehending stuff that they don't have, non-technical stuff that they need to consume or stuff they don't have to consume. They're only comprehending at like a 4th or 6th grade reading level. That's how you reach most people. Every marketer knows this. What does that say?
Does that still equate to today?
Yeah. You gotta, if your biggest message, if you want to reach the biggest group of people, you need to be under a 6th grade reading level. because that's where most adults in America are. And I think one time when we say reading, I'm including the idea. I'm not just talking about reading the words and knowing what the words are. I'm talking about comprehending what the words actually say, because those are two different lanes. And most people are comprehending at a level that's lower than their reading level.
Gotcha.
So they may not understand what the big word sounds like and what it says, but they may not know what it actually means. And they may not understand the context, like different contextual clues that makes words different. So like sometimes a contextual clue could make a word mean a completely different thing than it actually means. Some of those don't pick up on it. They don't understand nuance. They don't understand nuanced arguments. Definitely don't understand statistics and how statistics work. We definitely don't understand how research is actually conducted or what research findings actually say. There's lots of layers to our comprehension gaps. Some of these are just in general. Like, I don't expect your average person to be able to interpret statistical data and understand variance and all other stuff that goes into it. Like, right? I don't expect you to know that. But that also applies to a social media message where you're trying to be sarcastic or play it tongue in cheek and somebody's taking you literally. Like, that's an issue.
Gotcha.
So, and that's what it is. So let me see. We built high-speed information environment for a population that was never trained to interpret it.
Say that. Oh my God. Hold on. Which part are you on? That's crazy.
It's in the notes here.
I know where.
Under the thesis, because this is the thesis statement that I kind of put in there. It's like we built a high-speed information environment for a population that was never trained to interpret it.
All right, there it is. Okay. Man, okay, set the thesis early. What?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, but okay, so what do you mean by that?
So we have instantaneous access to information, right? But we don't know, like I said, we miss our own context clues. And so when you have instantaneous access to unlimited amounts of information, instead of being a fact-checking machine, you turn into a confirmational bias machine. Because you can find information that supports literally anything that you believe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And since we don't understand contextual clues or how to check a source, oftentimes we fall down a rabbit hole. Like when I was pulling up stuff for Dunbar's number, I went through like 4 or 5 different websites before I landed on one that actually had one where I'm like, okay, I can vet the sources. I can check the sources. This seems to be a reliable source, because anybody can post about Dunbar's number online.
Anybody, yeah.
But I had to find a website that I'm like, okay, I actually have some faith and belief in the veracity of this article.
Yeah.
More times than not, people will post first thing that comes up. They'll find the first thing that they see, read the headline, see if the headline kind of tentatively agrees with what they believe, and post it.
And then post it, right.
And
not actually going through it and reading it.
Right. Because going through and reading it sucks for a lot of people. That's the boring part.
Nah, that's the good part. I love that.
I love that. But
I love that. Take a pen and paper, get out and start. And like for me, like I buy so many red pens, it's crazy. But I'll read a book and I'll just red write all through it. So then I can always go back and then I'll put on the at the beginning of the book, whatever. So if I'm on page 17 or if I'm on page 137, I'll do like number 137, and then I'll put something in there like go read or rewind or whatever. So then I'll know to go back to that page for some reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? I love that. Like, what? Stop playing.
Well,
no, please.
And that's the thing though. Like, literacy rates are always lower than we expect them to be. And we expect that the person sitting next to us can comprehend the same things we can comprehend. And a lot of times they cannot. And that is not a method. That's not, a lot of times that may not even be a socioeconomic thing. It may just be a habits driven thing. I've met people that were on the higher end of the socioeconomic ladder who their reading comprehension was absolutely terrible. It was atrocious. Couldn't even write a coherent sentence. And that, a lot of times it's a matter of what muscles you flex, whether you go out and actively read and comprehend data. And more times than not, people are going for the top shelf. And that's what the instantaneous information does to you. You could just find something immediately that says it. Even people will chat GPT something, not understanding that unless you actively go in there and force chat GPT to show you the source,
Dude.
it will manufacture a source
Yeah.
and you will be quoting some hypothetical fake article that chat GPT. You have to actually go in and give it the instruction, do not give me unverified things. I need a link that works for every single source you cite. And still, you got to go back and check the sources because
Yeah.
sometimes it will
Yeah.
still will. And so, but people think that that's absolute. They think that information is absolute, and it really is not. You know, that's the scary part about it. And we're kind of hurtling towards this again. The young lady said, she's like, this is why the kids can't, kids don't read. That's why a lot of times a lot of modern music coming out. And it's not just a hip hop thing. You could say it for rock, you could say it for pop, different forms of pop music is literally just melodic noise because the lyric, the content of what somebody's actually saying don't necessarily matter, or people aren't sniffing it out. I've always been the outsider when it comes to hip hop specifically. Because I've had the argument with people like, what do you mean you listen to the lyrics first? You don't hear the beat first? No, I listen. I always.
Yeah. So do I. Yeah.
It's always, I've always listened to the lyrics, and like that's why you are listening to Biggie and I'm listening to the Polyrhythmatics. Like both have lyrics, both lyric content, but one is a lot denser than the other one, and I can enjoy both of them equally, but just in different parts of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happens is specifically with pop culture always gets boiled down to the lowest common denominator, regardless of what you think, because that's the easiest thing to access. And so we don't like complex themes. We don't like things that you actually have to bring your brain to.
No.
Collectively.
No. So I was looking up your boy Robin Dunbar.
Yep.
And I think that he talked about it in the book Gossip and other whatever, but then he also talks about it a lot in Friends, Understanding the Power of Our Most Important Relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where he really gets into a lot of that. And again, that's just me, again, whenever we're talking about stuff like this or whatever, like I love sociology in general, like love it. I love that stuff because again, it explains why we do what we do. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like psychology is cool, but psych only explains you and what you do. I like sociology because it explains everybody and why we collectively do what we do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just me though. Like I whenever you start talking about stuff like that, the first thing I think of is Stanley Milgram, who wrote the Authority. What did he write? Obedience to Authority.
Yeah.
He wrote that one, and that's the people in the white coats who tell you to shock that person. So that was Stanley Millsap or Stanley Milgram. I forgot his last name.
I got Milgram.
Milgram. Okay. Yep. And then his other guy who's still alive is Philip Zimbardo.
Yep.
And he's the one that did Don't Tell Me, the Stanford Prison Experiment. That was the experiment, but the book that he wrote was the Lucifer Effect.
Mm-hmm.
That was the book that he wrote, and I found that one that was crazy. And again, whenever I'm reading certain books where you got a bunch of people doing certain stuff to another person, the first people that I think about is sociology professor Stanley and Philip Zimbardo, because for me, they're the ones who set the stage for us to really understand why we do what we do. Think about why Stanley did the prison did authority to the obedience to authority, was because he was watching the Nuremberg trials and everybody kept saying I was just following orders.
Well, and we got to
following orders.
Give a little bit of context, because the Zimbardo prison experiment is basically where they took a bunch of students, and it was kind of an enclosed cognition test, but also trying to see what people are actually capable of when you put them in specific roles. And so they took a bunch of students, made some prisoners, made some wardens, and made a fake prison out of a door. I think it was a dorm room or whatnot. And
yeah.
And within, what was it, like a day?
No, it was so what they did was they basically flipped the coin of who's going to play who or whatever on the title.
Yeah.
Itself. And then I think it was supposed to last. Look up how long was this? I think it only lasted less than a week, but they were supposed to do it, I think, for like a couple months.
So it was planned to go last 2 weeks. It ended after 6 days.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they were worried that somebody's going to get killed.
Yes, because the warden which was actually Philip Zimbardo played the warden or whatever, and he really played the warden. So it wasn't like this is like, all right, well, we're just gonna do this or we're gonna do that. But as soon they started to understand that as soon as everybody was stationed with their titles, you became that title. So the prisoners became prisoners. The guards became guards. Isolation became isolation. They were not playing anymore.
Right.
Within the first couple of days, it turned bad quick.
Yeah. And violence.
Yes. Yeah. It turned bad quick.
And that's why when we talk about like prison, what happens in jail and stuff, I think a lot of times people don't really conceptualize like what it's like in these places where there is no oversight and it's not an experiment. And unless you have very strong controls, not just over the prisoner's behavior, but over the guards' behavior too, you're going to have some very dire situations hop off real quick. When I was running my residential programs, I used to tell my staff, the fastest way to brainwash somebody is you control their food or access to food. You control when they can go to the restroom. You control aspects of their life that they normally don't have to think about. And that's the way to brainwash somebody. And so you have to be really careful. Like if you were working with me, you would get in trouble if you used food as a punishment for one of the kids. Removing access to specific food or providing lower quality food just because this kid pissed you off, because that is one of the ways that you that's one of the ways that you bend somebody's will. When we talk about all the stuff with R. Kelly, that's what he was doing with those young ladies, was he's controlling their access to the restroom. Trapped them in the house, control their ability to access the restroom, access drinking water, access all kinds of other stuff. That is how you enforce compliance upon a person or persons. That's how you brainwash somebody. That's why a lot of cult things deal in that restriction of physical needs or restriction of access to physical choices about what you wear, what you dress, what you eat, where you go. Because that's how they enforce control over a population of people. And it gets really scary when we start talking about, like, on a national level with food assistance programs and things like that. You're absolutely trying to enforce compliance over what people's food choices are. That's how you breed compliance within the population, regardless of what your intent is or whether you're even aware of the game you're playing. So these are very dangerous things that you're playing along with when you start dictating people's personal choices in terms of that kind of stuff. And so, the prison experiment was, if you guys ever get a chance to read the book, but if you get a chance to even sit down and listen to them talk about the history of the prison experiment, it will change your philosophy on our carceral system and how we incarcerate people. And how we enforce it.
And not just that though, but now it's more of looking at it from the standpoint of not from crime, not from a criminal standpoint. Look at it from a monetary standpoint, and I
Right.
think that you'll start to understand why it's beneficial and it's profitable to throw people in prison for even small type stuff. And what people are not understanding is that the prison system in general has been consecutively going down in the number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And that is also the reason why we had talked about before, the reason why ICE is in such a hurry to detain so many of these so-called illegal individuals, which majority of them are not illegal at all.
Yeah.
They have more. Most of them have more papers than we do. Uh, I'm just saying. I mean, think about it. Most people can't find their social security number, their the card, their birth certificate. If you were just if ICE were to knock on your door and say, "Hey, I need this, this, and this," a lot of Americans, I'm not gonna say most, a lot of Americans probably wouldn't be able to find that shit.
Here's
Like I would,
mm-hmm.
because I have a safety deposit box for all that is. But what happens if you're not allowed to go to the bank to go get it?
Yeah.
What happens if they come at night to go grab your shit? You see what I'm saying?
When I was
go ahead.
When I was my wife and I were going to go to the Bahamas for our honeymoon. This is years and years and years ago. And the passports didn't get back in time fast enough. And so basically, in order to travel, we needed like birth certificates, birth records, right? I'm adopted in the state of Nebraska. I had no idea that to get a new copy, because we wanted to get a new copy of my birth certificate. To get a new copy of my birth certificate required like me going to 4 different offices, talking to like 6 different people, and then traveling 50 miles to go get a printed copy of it and paying a fee. The amount of hoops I had to go through just to get that was crazy. Now, let's think about if you are in one of these towns that's within 100 miles of a border, where Border Patrol doesn't need warrants for a lot of different things. They can just demand proof of your citizenship. Now, let's say you grew up in one of these cities where there's a large urban population, where they used to have one of those municipal city hospitals that got shuttered in the 70s or 80s. That didn't maintain any of their records. Didn't back them up to microfiche. There was no computer to back it up to. What I'm saying is there's a lot of people in this country who are our age, Fearless, me and you, they're our age. They were born to hospitals that no longer exist, and it's almost impossible to find their birth records.
Right.
So imagine now you are in one of these cities where ICE is just snatching people up and demanding proof of citizenship.
I mean, now here's the thing, though. I mean, if we are talking about it, we're talking about 11 to 14 million people that are actually here. And we're not just talking about Hispanics. We're talking about people from all over the world that are actually in the United States in general.
I'm talking about American citizens who don't have access to their birth records easily.
Oh yeah. I know somebody right now who doesn't.
Right. And I think a lot of times we take for granted that this stuff is easy to find. Listen, if I didn't have a car, I would have never gotten my birth certificate. Like, there was no faxing it, there was no emailing it. I had to physically drive to an entire other city to go pick it up. And I had to do that before I got on a plane the next day. I think we take for granted a lot of things that some people have easy access to. We take for granted that everybody in our country has easy access to. There are people in Chicago, there are Black folks in Chicago right now that don't have access to their birth records because the hospital they were born at no longer exists.
It no longer exists.
And those records didn't get backed up.
And they didn't get backed up. Yep. And that does happen. Yeah.
And so
that's what happened to the person that I know.
Are you saying that the majority of people? Okay. I love the fact you come on here, Liberty Twitcher. The thing I'm going to ask you to stop doing is saying you're saying that the majority of people being deported. If we're going to lead with those kind of questions, bro, like, make it based on something that was actually said. I know, but ask it as a question. So I didn't say no. I didn't say that.
No, actually, no, that was something that I said,
Yeah.
which is actually backed up by please. As soon as they said that, I started looking up. Homeland Security said that, not me. That was Homeland Security who said that majority of the people that they're just rounding up and sending off or whatever are people who actually have papers.
Yeah, and I'm
Yes,
gonna.
that's also the reason why they've had to let those individuals go because they did have the papers. There was also an addendum sent out from Trump's office telling people that, hey, excuse me, telling ICE to stop just picking anybody up. Stop doing that
Hold on 1 second.
because you're messing up restaurant businesses, hotel businesses, and other businesses. That's why they stopped doing that.
I'm a and see. I'm a because there's a whole raft of comments. Here's the thing. I'm gonna tell you, bro. I need you to understand the difference between a declarative statement and an interrogative statement. Just putting a question mark at the end of a declarative statement does not make it a question. It makes it a declarative statement with the question mark at the end of it. What's on the screen is more of a declarative statement. Am I saying that? No, I never really said that, man. And so when you're saying, you're saying,
but
yeah,
give me a second. I want to make sure you see exactly where I'm getting my information because I don't want you thinking that we're just up here just talking stuff. Give me one.
And I think
second.
We're doing a little bit of obsessing over the sample because you're picking out one specific thing.
Yeah,
we're talking about in the context of what we're talking about is there's a lot of American citizens that do not have do not have instantaneous or easy access to their birth records. And when you live within 100 miles of a border state, the rules are a little bit different. And so a lot of American citizens could get jammed up without having easy access to birth records to prove that they're American citizens. And so these are nuances that don't happen.
Right, but then the nuances that we are talking about is that a lot of these individuals who are so-called illegal actually still pay taxes the same as everybody else, who get loans like everybody else, who actually still participate in all the same stuff that we do. So when we say the word illegal, again, one of the things that we were talking about before is that we have to be very careful about the word and the terminology that we use. And maybe we need to define it on our end beforehand or whatever, because to sit there and say that somebody's illegal, I mean, technically, if you're not a person of color in America, you're technically illegal. Nobody got here illegal. Nobody got here legally. Like you know what I'm saying? So again, we can play this little tit for tat game of what's the word I'm looking for? Of when I say something and then you say it and then we kind of put these things man, and see, and that's the reason why we shouldn't be online all the time. Yeah. But there's a certain word I'm looking for. It'll pop to me. That's a great thing about my mind. But again, though, semantics. Sorry. Yeah, we because at this point we're getting into semantics or whatever, and I don't want to do that or whatever. What I'm saying in general is that under our president and Homeland Security, this is what they've been talking about. That's all I'm saying. And they have let people go. They have actually rounded people up who actually did have papers. You can go to any publication to go find them.
And we're talking about, also, in a lot of cases, we're talking about a matter of process, right? Like in order to make an asylum claim, you have to physically be in the country. Like you can't make an asylum claim necessarily from outside in a lot of senses. And so, yeah, they're illegal, but they're also claiming asylum. And so there's protections for people that have asylum. What we're doing is the process got changed midstream. And a lot of people that were in the asylum seeking process, all of a sudden were the process was removed and pathway was removed from them. And so all of a sudden now they're illegal. And so asylum's always been legal, and seeking asylum has been legal in this country, but we've changed the process and we're pretending like the process has always been that specific way, and it has not for a lot of people. But the context is, I feel like we're kind of going far afield because yeah, we mentioned illegals, but I was talking about the conversation that started this was I was talking about legal citizens who don't have access to their birth records.
Yeah, it was so yeah, and that's kind of what I was
Yeah.
talking about too. But I was also talking about the standpoint that people that are being deported also have that they have so much documentation that say like, hey, no, they're okay, and they're still being deported
Mm-hmm.
no matter what. So that was just kind of like a comment that I was throwing out
Mm-hmm.
in general with what agreeing with what you were talking about.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman that I knew that he was born in a lot of cases that happens in the military
Mm-hmm.
that you're born in another country, then you come here. Technically, you have dual citizenship for the most part, but you're born in another country, and depending on what was happening at that time, if that hospital doesn't exist anymore, you're
Right.
done.
You're donezo. And there are people I know that are experiencing that. Like I said, I experienced that to a degree, except my birth records, they were just hard to get, not non-existent anymore.
Right.
They weren't destroyed anymore. And I think one of the things that we run into is we forget a lot of that nuance when we have these conversations, because the other side is they're starting to find corollaries with a lot of like Proud Boys, and a lot of these separatist militias all of a sudden are ICE people and working within immigrations enforcement. And what happens when you are a legal citizen who no longer has access to the birth record and you're being detained by a white nationalist?
And then, hold on, though. There's a little bit more to that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the other nuance of that too. So the other problem with that is, I don't want to say problem. The other thing with that is that we don't have people coming into this country, especially Hispanics, coming into this country right now at all. The reason is because they're scared to, and they don't want to. So what's happening is that Homeland Security, and linked with ICE, is going around rounding up everybody that's in here and kicking them out as well. Again, our issue is our problem is that what happens once they're all gone?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, again, it's one thing to look at it from the standpoint now, but what happens when they're all gone and they don't want to be here? Matter of fact, Trump just said, why don't we bring people here from Norway?
Yeah.
Why don't we bring people here from other countries? Why do we have to have ones from the shithole ones?
And a lot of times people from Norway ain't trying to come here. They got the entire national endowment where they all got money.
Why the fuck would they want to come here?
Why would they? We're a third world country as far as they're concerned. And so,
like, don't do that.
And so the thing about it is, and yes, the denaturalization process should be alarming to all American citizens, because if they can denaturalize a foreign-born American citizen or a person that's here, how long is it before they try to test it out on somebody here? Because the Constitution hasn't necessarily mattered to this administration. It's never really mattered. It's been kind of
it's a yield sign is what it is.
It's a social contract.
If we're looking at things from a traffic standpoint, it's a yield sign. It's not a stop. It's a yield sign. It's, I see you, but I'm just gonna go ahead. As long as I can see I'm okay, I'm still gonna keep going.
And I
it's
think
a yield sign.
And I think the issue is, a lot of times it does come down to the matter of empathy, because when people don't necessarily have empathy, they think that what's happening to somebody else can never happen to them until it happens to them. And we've already mentioned, now this is journalism nerd. There's already on a journalistic record of Trump kind of intimating that they've kind of have some handshake informal agreements with El Salvador to offshore American prisoners. Yeah, American-born prisoners, not just people that get deported. People that were born here are prisoners in our court system. Offshore them in El Salvadoran prisons, some of the most brutal prisons in the world, where people do not survive. At what point does that shift from? First of all, he's saying, "Well, it's very, very bad people." Okay, so what point does a very bad person go from having a whole list of felonious assaults and all kinds of other stuff and murders and all kinds of other stuff. At what point does it shift from all this stuff to this person disagrees with me?
I mean, and then not only that though, but from a philosophical standpoint, what does very, very bad people mean?
Right.
I mean, are you talking about people who sank our economy? Are you talking about people who give each other information back and forth so that you can help your friends become multi-billionaires while you shit on the rest of the country? So what about becoming a president and you're already you're a criminal yourself? Like
So
you're actually a criminal yourself. You are a convicted felon. Like now. Like you can say whatever you want, but those are facts.
well, and so we're getting
Whatever.
like
So again, like what do we mean when we say what do we mean when we say very, very bad people? Because I think that our sense of very, very bad people may not be the same as his sense of very, very bad people. If that makes any sense. I ain't got no blood on my hands.
well, and when we remove the gates around how we treat prisoners, because society is only determined by how well we treat our prisoners, right? And so if we're saying that we're willing to take our prison people that are literally the either the state's responsibility or the federal state, like the fed, the government's responsibility. When you become a prisoner, you're basically a ward of the state or the feds. And we're willing to take them and put them into a jail, a prison that has no oversight, and it's not under our jurisdiction or laws. You are bending. You've basically made them non-citizens. That's an entire thing. I don't know if you remember, Fearless, a couple years ago in Chicago, they had a entire thing with the Chicago PD that got in trouble because they had a black site operating in Chicago.
What is that?
So they would take people that were detained, not arrested, detained, not formally charged. They would take them to a site that was off the public record, and that's where the torture would happen. And they torture people into confessions. They were shocking people with car batteries and punching people in the testicles and beating them and all kinds of other stuff, beating confessions out of citizens. And they did it off record. They had a site that they could do it so that people couldn't necessarily say where they went to. That was in the United States of America. And this was like, I think the article was 2012 when I was following up on that. And so that was such an egregious thing that a lot of people who were involved in it got fired and jailed. But we're going to basically take Americans and offshore them or even talk about it. The fact we're even discussing it, Overton's window done shifted. The fact that this is even in conversation. And so these are things that people need to be aware of. And so the DIs are too bad criminals and terrorists. Trump wants to expand that authority. Anybody with technology. Yeah. And so at some point, the pushback has got to be like, we got to draw the line. And I think you draw the line before you get to this super bad criminals and terrorists. Like you say, you can't denaturalize people, period. And unless there's some super egregious offenses, some very specific offenses, and you have to be able to prove beyond a shadow of doubt that these offenses occurred. And so we're trying to move the narrative. But not to put this aside, but let's jump back. Let's get back on to what we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah.
So we're talking about the attention economy today, Liberty Twitcher. And so we're talking about literacy rates and things like that. And it's not a school thing. It's not a schooling thing. We talked about it back and forth about who's responsible for it. At some point, you're responsible for your own literacy. And I think a lot of times people are opting out of things where they have to comprehend or invest their mind in something that they're reading. Oops, I got rid of my notes.
And Liberty Twitcher, I think that you're really I'd love to read or hear some of your opinions about this, because I know that you are a staunch supporter of literacy in general. And I'd love to know a little bit about what your experiences have been pertaining to this, because I know you're an employer or whatever. So have you noticed, again, I know that math has been the literacy in math has gone down considerably in general. But Liberty Teacher, have you noticed just reading comprehension in general that have gone down when you're looking at applications, when you're talking to applicants about the job that they actually need to do? Like, what have you seen? Okay, so uh, how do you expect people to want to be literate if they weren't held to literally standards, fluency standards by one of the schools and by two of the parents?
Yeah.
Yeah, and yes, like very much so. And we're also talking about the hold on, reading comprehension, grammar, vocabulary, are all worsened. Okay, cool. So let me ask you, Liberty Twitcher. This is one of the things that Brian just said, but I want to see if you agree with this. Do you agree that it is on the person to build themselves up, or do you think that this is a cultural thing that together we need to be working on to make sure that people are building themselves up on? So maybe that's inspiring other people to want to read a little bit more, or checking people when they're talking about certain things with reading comprehension, grammar, vocabulary, etc. I know that you said that they've all worsened, but do you feel any responsibility and maybe helping to to raise the standards for that? Do you understand what I'm saying,
Yeah.
Brian?
I get what you're saying. I
Uh,
think
both, but a lot of people aren't like we are, so it doesn't occur to them to build themselves up.
well, and I think one of the things the reason say show younger people don't consider achievement very important. Well, I think I
I,
think
I,
I get where
you,
you're, and I tend to agree. I think we're kind of in this weird thing where we have had a lot of brass rings. Even I grew up with a lot of brass rings, right? You reach those brass rings and you're like, this ain't as great as you thought it was. And I think what we're seeing is people are just desensitized to it now. Like they're
mm,
desensitized with these achievements that don't necessarily put money in their pocket or improve their life in any measurable way. Um, and so yeah, I think there is an issue with it, but I also think that we have to make the achievements mean things. Like if you achieve a certain thing, then that means that something tangible that you receive or something rewarding in and of itself. And I think a lot of times these status symbols that we chase in this society are empty. So
yeah, I agree. I agree. And you know what? And again, I think that kind of talking about piggyback writing off what you said, Liberty Twitcher, is what does the word achievement mean?
yeah,
Like when we say that a recent study shows that younger people don't consider achievement very important. What is it? What are they not achieving, or what are they not considering to be important? Like what achievement? So is it that they graduated from high school? Is that they? Uh, I mean, because again, I guarantee you, if you talk to other kids about what do you consider achievement to be, I guarantee you, it may be different
mm-hmm.
than the study that was shown or the question that was even asked about that. If that makes any sense.
Right. And I think for us, a lot of times sometimes you got to redefine. Like it's always defined internally. Like what motivates you is the difference. Like what motivates me doesn't motivate Fearless. What motivates Fearless doesn't motivate you, Liberty Twitcher. And so everybody's gonna have differential kind of reinforcement, right? Um,
Hey, remember when you and I we were talking to Chat GPT and we were both asking Chat the same exact question,
yeah,
and it told me to do something, it told you not to,
right,
because it understood that both you and I are totally different in our approach to stuff.
yeah,
And we both started laughing about that because I think that at that point we understood that your chat is going to give you what's in the best interest of you.
right,
And it's not going to tell you what's in the best interest of everybody because it doesn't know everybody. Well, technically, it kind of does. but it only gives you what's in the best interest of you.
Well, and the thing I've said is the reason why ChatGPT is so agreeable is because if it wasn't, people wouldn't utilize it. There wouldn't be widespread adoption of this thing. If you're going to have an argument with your phone every 5 minutes, what would you need ChatGPT for? And I think that's why it is default overwhelmingly agreeable to the point where you actually have to put a prompt in its persistent memory to say, stop agreeing with me so much. It's not your job to validate my bad thinking.
Right.
But a study of 2% hold values that companies want new hires. Okay, so
That's a pretty small percentage, though.
there's a thing though, because generational wise, because I actually did take a class on this one when I was managing. There's gonna be every generation values different things, right?
Yeah, correct.
And so the things that Gen X and Gen Y and baby boomers,
The millennials.
and the millennials and stuff, they're gonna value different things in the workplace.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
and what's happening is, I think a lot of times the old methods of control that you normally had to control a group of employees, they don't really work anymore.
No,
Because I think there's something to be said about the fact that these corporations no longer have any loyalty to the employees.
no.
And so now you have a generation say these corporations don't care about us, so why should we care about them?
Mhm.
It used to be that you would get your job and that would be what you did for 40 years. You get your pension and go retire. And they took care of your life. Now they'll fire you and replace you within a day just because somebody is cheaper. Or I've had family members that were the most qualified person, but since their tenure was at a certain point where they're getting compensated a certain amount, they ended up getting forced out of the door. And then they hired 3 people at a quarter of what they were paying this person. And so when a company shows that little loyalty, when that gets built into a society, you're going to see a group of employees that don't value their employment with a specific company as much.
Nope. And then not only that though, but I mean, matter of fact, what's my man's name? Yavari or whatever, the guy who wrote Homo Deus, and he wrote a couple of the books he got up there or whatever. But he was talking about how he said, dude, listen, the y'all keep thinking that all of these other things are going to be the this facto of destroying America in general. He said, if you really want to know what's coming for you, it's AI. And he said, matter of fact, take the A off of it because it's not artificial; it's intelligent. And now you have the super AI thing that's coming out, that's already out, that's getting better and better and better and better. Your job, Liberty Trisha, I don't know what you do, but I can almost assure you that whatever you do, for the most part, within the next 10 to 15 years, AI will be doing your job. You know what I'm saying? And then you're not going to have to worry about numbers. And so it says I use Chat GPT to do deep research. Perfect. But the one thing that I will tell you, I love chat. He said it's amazing. He said, okay, so you know what I'm talking about, paying the $200 per month. But here's the one thing that I will tell you though, chat has been known to be wrong.
A lot.
Wrong, my friend. And again, I'm going to college myself. Hold on. Fix a legal brief for far less than my attorneys would in charge of the basic. Okay.
So,
I mean, yes. No, I 100% agree with you. But when it comes to everything, but I mean, matter of fact, even them, lawyers, eventually, they're about to be out.
well,
Like they're about to be gone.
if we're going to talk about talking about power using of AI, so I use but Fearless will tell you I use AI agent. Like I was using Manus before it kind of crossed over and stuff. And Manus has a lot of the Chat GPT Pro features on it for less. It's just limited on credits and whatnot. And I will use I will force Manus to double check Chat GPT and use Chat GPT to double check Manus.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll still be wrong. And so it is being mindful of the fact that it will hallucinate no matter what you do. But I think and I have a friend out working in tech, and he is on he's kind of the gatekeeper, works in HR out in Silicon Valley. The thing that's going to be the determining factor of how people get hired in the new world is how well they utilize AI as a tool to offload menial tasks, how efficient they are. That's where prompt engineering comes in. I've already built a couple of custom agents. I've already done a couple of courses on prompt engineering. I actually sell custom prompts that I built at my little stand store or whatnot. And that's going to be the determining factor between who gets what jobs. How proficient can you force AI to do things that are low leverage and you need quick answers on? And how accurate can you force AI to be? And so I think that's going to be a lot of determining factors, because I still think you're going to need a human element in some of this stuff. As long as AI is drawing people with 7 fingers, we're going to have AI, there's going to be some level of oversight. But
that's really, you're really saying something. I decided to go back to school myself or whatever for philosophy and therapy or whatever. But here's the thing. I'm not going to school because I need a job. Like, if that makes any sense. Liberty Church, I'm not going to school because I need a job. I think that if you look outside your door, you can tell and you can see that there's a whole lot of work to be done, but there's not a lot of jobs to do it. So that basically means that if you go to school today, your whole objective better be working for yourself in some facet, or you better have a connection to somebody else who actually has a hiring ability to be able to what's the word I'm looking for? To anepotize you for the most part, or whatever. Because if you do not, I'm just telling you, you may or may not have a problem.
Right.
Like, I'm just saying, like, I'm not trying. I am not. Hold on. And it's never been easier to work for. Yes, if you have an issue, yes, for sure. Work for yourself. So I'm not going to school because, oh my God, I want a better job. No, I'm going to school because I need the certain tools, strategies, and tips to be able to help people to question things a little bit better. Sorry about that. Hold on, my camera. Hey, dude. Hey, man,
AI on the camera.
AI on the camera. Hey, I got to turn this thing in again.
You do?
The back of it busted open again.
Oh, wow.
Again. Dude, I'm telling you, this thing is like, and it might be because I have it plugged in all the time.
That could be it. Where it's cooking the battery.
It's cooking the battery.
It might be cooking the battery.
So either way, I don't know which one this one is, but I do have a warranty for both. So I'll just either get another one or, like, I don't know. I gotta call Diane to get my other one though.
It might be worth getting a little webcam that you keep plugged in all the time, like a extra bulked up webcam.
I know, but dude, they don't work like this one does though.
That's true. What? No, I'll send you a couple, because there's a couple that have it has the same head on it and some of the same technology and sensors where it will track you. It's a webcam, but it's just all it is the webcam. It doesn't have the whole stabilizer gimbal under.
Okay, cool. As long as it tracks me, that's all I care about.
It's the OBS-Bot. I'll send it to you. So, that's an aside. And I gotta actually, speaking of being a business owner, I got a 12:30. So this is what we're gonna talk. This is what we're gonna wrap up with here. Thanks for tuning in, Liberty Twitcher. As usual, great conversation. The thing is, you're gonna tune in. We're gonna challenge you. I'm gonna challenge you if I think that it's something we're challenging it. So the back and forth is all love. All right.
Indeed.
So the thing about it is, we're talking about the attention economy in social media, and the thing about it is, I had said it earlier, the price of integrity is cheap in the attention economy. And so what are you willing to sell your integrity for? And a lot of times people are willing to sell it for some clicks and some likes and maybe a little check from a social media company. You need to make sure that if your kids are invested in this intention economy, make sure they're able to read. And so we're going to clarify a few things about literacy, because we were talking about this and then we kind of got. So for clarification, literacy is not just reading words. Maybe this can be the final word we say on this. Yeah. Literacy is not just reading words. It's interpreting meaning. It's understanding context. It's evaluating claims. Okay. There's context, there's subtext, there's pretext, there's all kinds of textual, metatextual things that shape our ability to comprehend what is being read, what is being said to us, what we consume.
Right, as well as critical thinking.
Right. And as the attention economy forces us to flush and bombard ourselves with dopamine all the time, it gets harder and harder and harder to really pause for a second and see, do I really understand what's being said here?
Right.
Do I really get what we're discussing here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think oftentimes that isn't the case.
Right.
I think we're kind of predisposed to jump to conclusions and things along those lines. And so just guard yourselves against it, guys. That's all we're saying.
That's it.
Understand that person that you're talking to, their reading comprehension. You may be reading comprehension at an 8th grade level. They may be at a 4th grade level, and you both went to school at the same time and graduated from the same school. Okay. That's just how it be. That's how it be out here. So, these platforms are incentivized for us to dump our attention into, and they're incentivized to keep our attention span short. So get offline, read a book, sit down and listen to something for the mere enjoyment of listening to a thing and pay attention to the words. Force yourself to comprehend things, and force yourself to have to interpret things that you don't necessarily.
And ask yourself questions. Ask yourself questions.
And that's how you keep the razor sharp. That's how you keep your mind.
That's how you doing.
You know. So we do appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm gonna get up with Fearless here real quick. But if you guys got any questions or anything, hit us up on the socials. I'm not even we have our links. You guys have seen our links plenty of times. Do we need to show them real quick, Fearless?
No,
no.
We go.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll get up with you guys. We'll get up with you guys next week. We'll talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. Trial and Error. Brian and Fearless.
Deuces.